June Jones returning to the XFL as offensive coordinator for Seattle team. How would we know this? Well, former Houston Roughnecks head coach and general manager June Jones announced via his Twitter bio that he'd be returning to the XFL. This time he'll be doing it as an offensive coordinator under Jim Haslett. You can't make this stuff up, who was recently revealed as one of the eight XFL coaches in 2023. And this is a clip from Markcast, grabbed it right off. This is June Jones' account. It says offensive coordinator XFL for Jim Haslett in Seattle. Whoa. So team in Seattle. Jim Haslett is the head coach in Seattle. And June Jones returns to the XFL as offensive coordinator. I love this. However, he eventually took out the part in his bio after word began to spread on the internet. The coach might have jumped the gun with his announcements, and the league told him not yet. He has done that before. June last coached the Conquerors of the Spring League in 2020, where he also held the offensive coordinator position back in January. There was buzz about Jones possibly returning to the University of Hawaii, where he had spent 9 seasons. Of course, that is the Rock. I didn't even think about that. The Rock's Hawaiian connection and June Jones, creating one of the league's college football's most lethal passing attacks. However, Jones turned down the offer in search of other options. Since then, there has been much more development regarding the XFL's return, which Jones may be waiting for and has made a decision. Over the 5-game span in the XFL, Jones successfully implemented his run-and-shoot offense, turning quarterback P.J. Walker into an unofficial MVPJ. The Roughnecks went undefeated, and many of Jones' players earned NFL opportunities as a result. Jones has some of the best experience in coaching business going back to the 1980s and has worked in many leagues throughout his tenure. Not only did Jones announce his return to the XFL, but he said he'd be doing so, quote, in Seattle. It can be inferred that Seattle will host the team in 2023, clearly, although whether or not the Dragons' name will be retained is certainly unknown. This is one of the first mentions of a Seattle franchise, as much of the news regarding host cities has been centered around Las Vegas, Orlando, and San Antonio. Jones becomes just one of 2 coaches/staff members to rejoin the league from 2020 so far, with the other being longtime Oklahoma head coach Bob Stoops, held the same position with Dallas. While Jones' familiar face that is sure to get XFL fans excited, he won't be the last XFL alumni to come back. On the topic of Stoops, his offensive coordinator in Dallas was Hal Mumme, commonly referred to as the godfather of the air raid offense. Mumme and Jones had similar coaching styles, and Mumme also spent time in the Spring League following the XFL's suspension. Whether or not he returns to the XFL under Stoops or makes a return at all is yet to be seen, but his name is certainly at the top of list of coordinator availability. Jones' return to the XFL is a great look for the whole league, given that he was able to accomplish 2 years ago. If it could mean that his return of more coaches and coordinators, many of whom have praised the league publicly, from the entire team here at XFL News Hub. Welcome back, June. Absolutely. So June Jones returns. Could there be other coaches returned? I like this. I think this is better. What I would love to see with the XFL coaching staffs, and I think this is kind of where we're going. Now, Jim Haslett has been around for a while, too. But having some of these guys like June Jones come back and return, but just as offensive coordinator and as a teacher, that's what you really want. He doesn't really need to be the head coach, per se, even though he's got the experience, clearly. I mean, so does Jim Haslett. But then Jim Haslett run the team. I mean, Coach Jones didn't just turn 50. You know, he's up there in years. So let him just kind of run the offense and Jim Haslett do his thing. This opens up the doors for maybe guys like Jonathan Hayes to return. Maybe you get, some of the Winston Moss as a defensive coordinator. Maybe he makes a return back to the league. So we'll just kind of keep an eye out. I mean, because I'd love to see Winston Moss in Las Vegas as a defensive coordinator. We'll have to just kind of stay tuned. But this was a nice thing that a lot of XFL fans will be excited about, to see Coach Jones returning to the XFL in any capacity. And of offensive coordinator, I think it's a fantastic idea.